There were 22 different comic books in the United States published with a cover date of August 1938. Debuting that month was Little Giant Movie Funnies, number 1, August 1938, published by Centaur Publications. Black and white interior but a color cover in this small oddball-sized comic, dimensions 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches. This is the first comic book devoted completely to movies with funny spoofs. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book. It's been rated a Gerber 8 for rarity. This is a thick 132-page comic. Some of the strips include Ovenho, The Secret Treasure, and Rags the Wonder Dog. There's also stories, puzzles, and magic tricks. And Paul Gustafson and Bob Wood art is featured. Amazing Mystery Funnies, Volume 1, Number 1, August 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This is the first published comic book work of Bill Everett. The cover was the youngster's only contribution to this premiere issue, which features a mixture of reprints and new material. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book. This was a standard 10-cent cover price book with 52 pages. Skyrocket Steel is featured on the cover only, but is not in the interior strips. The majority of this issue is reprinted from past issues of Funny Picture Stories from the past 2 years. Skyrocket Steel is featured on the cover, drawn by Bill Everett in this early science fiction cover. Little Giant Comics, number 2, August 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This is another black and white comic with a color cover featuring stories, puzzles, and magic. Paul Gustafson had done the art in issue number 1, so it's possible he contributed to number 2 as well. This is a 10-cent comic with a hefty 132 pages, black and white interior, small oddball-sized dimensions, 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches. Martin Vilchak wrote and drew the majority of the strips in issue number 1, so it's possible he contributed to number 2 as well. Many of the strips in this issue are reprinted from various different Centaur comics published. Action Comics number 3, August 1938, published by DC Comics. The third appearance ever of Superman, and one of the 30 most valuable comic books of all time. Overstreet Price Guide rates this as scarce, and Gerber gives it an 8 as rare. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book. Cover art is by Leo O'Mealia. The Superman strip is 12 pages called The Blakely Mine Disaster, written by Jerry Siegel with art by Joe Shuster in this early superhero strip. Features Superman, Clark Kent, George Taylor, not yet named, Stanislaw Kober, and Thornton Blakely is the villain. After Superman saves a group of miners from a cave-in, Clark Kent senses a story that may mean that the mine's owner, Thornton Blakely, is actually running unsafe mine operations and blaming accidents on the miners themselves. Superman in miner's outfit pulls himself up a mine cable while lifting up an unconscious miner. Superman appears in only one panel in his own costume in this story, wearing blue boots, and Clark Kent appears in only one panel at the end, dressed in his business suit. This story would be reprinted the next year in Superman number 1. Other highlights in this issue include Scoop Scanlon, 5-star reporter, a 6-page story written and drawn by Will Eli. Pet Morgan is a 4-page story written by Gardner Fox with art by Fred Gardenier under the alias Gene Baxter. Tex Thompson appears in a lengthy 12-page story drawn by Bernard Bailey. Zaytera Master Magician is a lengthy 12-page story featuring the third appearance of Zaytera. And Zaytera foils the latest scheme of the Tigress, who is the villain in this story, drawn by Fred Gardenier. Crackajack Funnies, number 3, August 1938, published by Dell Comics. There is a Dell Comics file copy that has survived in high grade. There's also a Mile High pedigree copy from the Edgar Church collection. This book is copyright 1935, 36, 37, and 38 by the Publishers Syndicate Inc., NEA Service Inc., Bell Syndicate, and Stephen Schlesinger Inc., and distributed by American News Company. The cover features Don Winslow, Wash Tubbs, Dan Dunn, Secret Operative 48, Freckles, and Myra North, Special Nurse. There's a 5-page Dan Dunn Secret Operative 48 story written and drawn by Norman Marsh. Don Winslow appears in a 4-page story written by Lieutenant Frank Martinek with art by Leon Baroth in this war adventure story. Tom Mix appears in a 4-page story drawn by Al Lewin in this Western Frontier tale. Circus the Comic Riot, number 3, August 1938, published by the Globe Syndicate. This is the final issue from this short-lived series and the only title from this publisher in 1938. Overstreet Price Guide calls this book scarce, and Gerber gives it a rare rating of 8. The official sale date of this issue was July 13th, 1938. Some of the highlights in art include Will Eisner, Basil Wolverton, Jack Cole, and Bob Kane. Super Comics number 4, August 1938, published by Dell Comics. The Gerber Photojournal terms this issue scarce, estimating that less than 50 copies still exist. The book's star-studded lineup includes Dick Tracy, Little Orphan Annie, Terry and the Pirates, Ghastly Nellie, Harold Teen, and many more. Dick Tracy, Little Orphan Annie, and Mutt are featured on the cover. There is a 4-page Dick Tracy story written and drawn by Chester Gould, reprinted from the Dick Tracy Sunday at the Chicago Tribune New York News Syndicate, dated July 1937. Little Orphan Annie returns in a 4-page story written and drawn by Harold Gray, featuring Annie, Sandy, and Mr. M, reprinted from the Little Orphan Annie Sundays at the Chicago Tribune New York News Syndicate from July 1937. The Lost Colony of Atlantis is a 3-page story written and drawn by William Ward, reprinted from the British Mickey Mouse Weekly magazine from Oldham's from 1936. Terry and the Pirates returns in a 5-page story written and drawn by Milton Caniff, reprinted from the Terry and the Pirates Sundays at the Chicago Tribune New York News Syndicate, dated December through January into 1937. Wings of Fortune is a 3-page story written and drawn by Reg Perot. This aviation story is reprinted from the British Mickey Mouse Weekly from Oldham's, 1936. And The City of Jewels is a 2-page story written and drawn by Jock McHale. The adventure story is reprinted also from the Mickey Mouse Weekly, published by Oldham's in 1936 in the UK. Comics on Parade, number 5, August 1938, published by United Feature Syndicate. Gerber gives this a 7 on its scarcity index. The cover features Tarzan swimming with all the other main characters in this issue, such as Little Abner, Captain and the Kids, Abby and Slats, Ella Cinders, Fritzy Ritz, and others. The Comics, number 9, August 1938, published by Dell Comics. Gerber Photojournal rates this scarcity rating of 7. There's a Tex Ritter appearance in this issue. Highlights also include Salesman Sam, written and drawn by George Swanson. This strip appears 8 times in this issue, the highest record of repeated strips ever in a comic book so far. Rod Ryan of the Sky Police, an early sci-fi tale, appears in 4 pages, written and drawn by Paul Jepson. And Gordon Fife and the Boy King appear in 3 pages, written by Bob Moore, with art by Carl Pfeiffer. Feature Funnies, number 11, August 1938, published by Centaur Comics. The Bungle family appear on the cover. Art is possibly by Ed Cronin. The Clock Strikes is a 5-page story featuring this early superhero, Brian O'Brien, known as The Clock, written and drawn by George Brenner. The Clock appears to have murdered real estate broker Tyrone Caron in this story. Hawks of the Seas returns in a 4-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Willis Renzi. This historical story is reprinted from the UK Wags comic published by Editors Press Service, issue number 50, dated February 11th, 1938. Archie O'Toole is a 2-page story, also written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias of Bud Thomas, and this humor tale features the characters Archie O'Toole, Spider, and Gil O'Teen. Lollapalooza appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by Rube Goldberg, and the humor story is reprinted from the Frank J. Markey Syndicate. And Screen Snapshots is a 1-page cartoon written and drawn by Bernard Bailey. It's a biographical strip featuring Universal Phoenix features. Cowboy Comics number 14, August 1938, published by Centaur Publications. This was a single-theme comic back when very few such comics were published. Centaur was publishing more titles than DC at this time. This is the second and the final issue of this title. With the next issue, number 15, the title was changed again to Star Ranger Funnies. This issue features the Centaur logo, which the publisher did not use very often. There's a Native American Indian cover, and this is the same month as feature book number 16 featured Red Eagle, a Native American Indian. Feature book number 16, featuring Red Eagle, August 1938, published by David McKay Publications. This is an oversized comic with rough, heavy stock cover, 76 pages. It's the first comic devoted to a Native American Indian, and was published the same month as Cowboy Comics number 14, which had a Native American Indian cover. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. Red Eagle is featured on the cover, drawn by Jimmy Thompson. And Jimmy Thompson wrote and drew the entire issue, Red Eagle, 66 pages worth of strips, this Western Frontier title featuring the character Red Eagle, and it's possibly original material. Ace Comics number 17, August 1938, published by David McKay Publications, featuring the Phantom, Blondie, Crazy Cat, and many more. Highlights include a Katzenjammer Kids cover drawn by Joe Musial. Jungle Jim appears in a 4-page story drawn by Alex Raymond. Blondie appears in a 4-page story drawn by Chick Young. And the Phantom appears in 4 pages, written by Lee Falk with art by Ray Moore in this Adventure Jungle strip. Detective Comics number 18, August 1938, published by DC Comics. Fu Manchu was the star of the feature at this time, and the lineup of good guys included Slam Bradley, Speed Saunders, Buck Marshall, Bart Reagan, and Cosmo. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The cover features Dr. Fu Manchu, drawn by Craig Flessel. Speed Saunders appears in a 6-page story drawn by Fred Gardenier. Oscar the Gumshoe is a 1-page comedy strip from writer-artist Bob Kane. Larry Steele is featured in 6 pages from writer-artist Will Eli. The Dr. Fu Manchu story runs 4 pages, written by Sax Romer with art by Leo O'Mealia. The adventure strip features the characters Nayland Smith and Fu Manchu and is reprinted from the Bell Syndicate Dailies from 1931, and it is an adaptation of the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu by Sax Romer. Spy appears in an 8-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster, featuring the characters Bart Reagan, Sally Norris, and the villain Achmet. And in this issue, Bart proposes to Sally. Steve Malone appears in a 6-page story written by Gardner Fox. It's the first appearance of Steve Malone and the villain Genie, and the story is featured in black and white. And Slam Bradley is the lengthy story in this issue, 13 pages from the team of Siegel and Schuster, their detective mystery featuring Slam Bradley and Shorty Morgan. The Funnies, number 23, August 1938, published by Dell Comics. Herky is featured on the cover. Highlights include 4 Aces, a 2-page story from writer-artist Hal Forrest in this Adventure Aviation strip, reprinted from the 4 Aces Sundays at the Bell Syndicate. Scribbly returns in 2 pages from writer-artist Sheldon Mayer. The Wonderland of Oz appears in 2 pages from writer-artist Walt Spouse in this supernatural tale, featuring the characters Tip, Jack Pumpkinhead, and Wooden Sawhorse, and ties into the Wizard of Oz series. Tip Top Comics number 28, August 1938, published by United Features Syndicate. Little Abner is featured on the cover and inside story. There is a Lost Valley pedigree copy of this issue. Other highlights include Tarzan, Captain and the Kids, Jim Hardy, Frankie Doodle, Ella Cinders, and Little Mary Mix-Up. King Comics number 29, August 1938, published by David McKay Publications. The art on the cover is by Joe Musial. This issue also features Jack Burnley art. There's a Lost Valley pedigree copy of this issue. Popeye is featured on the cover, also with Wimpy and Olive Oil. Thimble Theater is a 4-page story written and drawn by E.C. Cigar, featuring Popeye and Olive Oil, reprinted from the Thimble Theater Sundays at King Features Syndicate, dated October through November 1937. Flash Gordon appears in 4 pages from writer Don Moore and art by Alex Raymond in this early science fiction classic, featuring the characters Flash Gordon, Dale Arden, and Hans Zarkov, reprinted from the Flash Gordon Sundays at the King Features Syndicate, dated October through November 1937. King of the Royal Mounted is a 4-page story written by Zane Grey with art by Charles Flanders, and the adventure strip is reprinted from the King of the Royal Mounted Sundays at King Features Syndicate, dated 1937. Sport Features is a 1-page strip drawn by Jack Burnley. This non-fiction sport strip is reprinted from the Sport Features Sundays at King Features Syndicate from 1937. Brick Bradford appears in 4 pages from writer William Ritt with art by Clarence Gray in this adventure sci-fi tale reprinted from the Brick Bradford Sundays at Kingfisher Syndicate, dated October through November 1937. And Mandrake the Magician appears in 4 pages, written by Lee Falk with art by Phil Davis in this early supernatural tale featuring Mandrake the Magician and Lothar, reprinted from the Mandrake the Magician Sundays at Kingfisher Syndicate, dated October through November 1937. New Adventure Comics number 29, August 1938, published by DC Comics. The cover art is by Craig Flassel, featuring a soldier fighting Arab thieves. There is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. Gerber rates it a 7 for rarity. Anchors Away is a lengthy 6-page story written and drawn by Fred Gardenier in this adventure tale, which features the villain El Diablo and the first appearance of the villain Rose del Muerte. Candid Comic Camera is a 1-page story written and drawn by Bob Kane, and the humorous story makes its first appearance here. Federal Men is 4 pages from Siegel and Schuster in their detective mystery. Nadir Master of Magic is a supernatural story running 4 pages from writer-artist Will Eli. Professor Doolittle is 2 pages of humor from writer-artist Bob Kane. Robin Hood returns in a 6-page story from writer-artist Sven Elvin. Dale Daring is in 4 pages from writer-artist Will Eli. And Bob Kane writes and draws Rusty and His Pals, a 4-page story about a dog. Popular Comics, number 31, August 1938, published by Dell Comics. The cover features Toby, Tailspin Tommy, Skippy, Herky, Shark Egan, and Toonerville Trolley. Tim McCoy as Tim Carson is a 6-page story drawn by Jim Gary. The Western Frontier story features Tim Carson and the villain Bart Kane. This is possibly a Big Little Book reprint based on the movie Two Gun Justice, featuring Tim McCoy as Tim Carson, Betty Compson as Kate Wiley, and directed by Alan James. Don Dixon is a 2-page story written by Bob Moore with art by Carl Pfeiffer in this early science fiction tale, reprinted from the Brooklyn Eagle Sunday strips in 1937. Tailspin Tommy is 4 pages, written and drawn by Hal Forrest. The adventure tale is reprinted from the Bell Syndicate and features strips issue 401 through 404. All strips were numbered but not dated. Tada the Tanbark is a 2-page story written by Bob Moore with art by Carl Pfeiffer in this Western Frontier strip from the Brooklyn Eagle Sunday page, and was a topper for Don Dixon. More Fun Comics, number 34, August 1938, published by DC Comics. Kid and Dog Chased by a Man is the cover, featured by artist Vince Sullivan. Sandra of the Secret Service is a 3-page story with art by Will Eli. Radio Squad returns in 6 pages from the team of Siegel and Schuster in their detective mystery featuring the characters Sandy Keene and Larry Trent. Buccaneer is 6 pages from writer-artist Bernard Bailey. Ginger Snap is 2 pages from writer-artist Bob Kane. Johnny Law, 4 pages from artist Will Eli. Butch the Pup is 2 pages from writer-artist Fred Schwab, and is the first appearance of Butch the Pup. Now You Know is a 1-page story from writer-artist Sheldon Moldoff. Stardust is a 1-page text article with art by Bernard Bailey, featuring the characters Boris Karloff, Alice Faye, W.C. Fields, and Stephen Fetchit. Here and There is a 1-page cartoon from writer-artist Paul Gustafson, and Sport Dust is a 1-page text article written and drawn by Sheldon Moldoff, dealing with sports. Mickey Mouse Magazine number 35, Volume 3, number 11, from Western Publishing, August 1938. Mickey the Sheriff begins in this issue, and this issue also contains a color feature on Snow White's animal friends. Famous Funnies number 49, August 1938, published by Eastern Color, the longest-running comic book up to this point. Napoleon is featured on the cover with art by Victor Pazmino. Also, Uncle Elby is featured. Buck Rogers appears in a 4-page story written by Philip Francis Nolan with art by Rick Yeager under the alias Dick Calkins in this classic science fiction strip. War on Crime, the first crime genre comic strip in modern comics, continues its monthly run, written by Rex Collier with art by Jimmy Thompson in 3 pages. And S.M. Iger, under the alias Bob Bliss, writes and draws the 1-page strip Queenie.